In this episode, we head to Verbier in the Swiss Alps for the final of the Freeride World Tour. We find out whom the rider's favorite rider is. Flo Orley talks about winning the mental game. The juniors are back in the start gate, and we have all the best action from the world's best freeriders in Verbier.
Verbier is a freeride mecca, you know. There's a lot of great ski areas in this part of the Alps, in the Valais, but a lot of the best riders congregate here.
It's like a great little European town that I've always dreamed of coming and hanging out in.
Verbier, I guess, it's a good compromise between a really cool lifestyle. You know, there's a really nice town, lots of sun, lots of cool people from everywhere.
Back home, I think when people think of Verbier, they think of this face. Verbier is up there with Alaska and Chamonix.
So much terrain to ride, big old peaks, trams going to the top of everything. It's pretty crazy.
It's just the best lift-accessed off-piste terrain that this part of the world has to offer. It's something that's in the back of your head all year, and you arrive in Verbier and you're just like waiting for that first view of the mountain, and you look up and you see it standing up kind of above everything, and it just gives you this crazy buzz.
Yeah, this thing is gnarly. It's so big. It's way bigger than any other venue on the tour. The thing that gets me is the rocks. If you catch one of those and tumble down, you're tumbling basically through cliff.
It's a face that demands lots of concentration and lots of focus, and in general, it's pretty stressful.
Well, the Bec is definitely the biggest venue in freeride. It's nearly 3,000 vertical feet. It's, I think, about 800 vertical meters, so it's huge descent. It takes a long time to get down and holds a really steep pitch the whole way. And it has a ton of history, too. You know, we've been competing here. This will be the 18th year, so there's deep history, and it hasn't gotten old even though we've been here for so long, just because it's such a difficult venue that it's not like anybody's going to master it. It's still kind of this ultimate challenge for our sport.
Only the highest placed athletes, the best of the best, had qualified to compete here in Verbier on the steep faces of the legendary Bec de Ros. Great snow conditions all season and the additional fresh snow early in the week meant the intimidating face was in great condition for the riders. Margot Rosies of France dropped in from the women's start on the shoulder of the Bec. Riding with good speed and technique down the upper section, she hit the cliff below, jumping a good distance but butt-checking her landing slightly. Riding down the face, she stomped the next two airs perfectly into the powdery landings, taking a third-place finish. Local Swiss rider Estelle Ballet was given a wild card to compete at the Extreme this year. Dropping in, she chose to go straight into the right-hand couloir as her coach Geraldine Fasnacht had done in the previous years. Riding fast down the face, she aired her first cliff without hesitation, landing well and keeping her control despite the small bobble. In another steep section of the face, she added another clean air to her run. With fingertip control, Ballet negotiated her way down the rest of the steep section to hit a last air at the bottom of the face, riding into second place ahead of Margot Rosies. France's Elodie Mouton started off her run at speed, hitting the first cliff zone confidently and landing well in the steep powder. Making her way through the track snow below, she picked up an unridden feature, getting air and landing it cleanly. Still riding with speed, she took on another cliff, hitting it hard and again landing clean. This fast, well-constructed line was the standout run for the judges, with Mouton taking a well-deserved first-place win and taking the overall title of World Champion Snowboard Women. I've watched the Verbier Extreme since I was little. It's really a dream to have achieved this. I've never come before, and now I've come here, taken part, and won the title as well. Over in the snowboard men category, with three of the top riders still in the running for the title, it was set to be a gripping finale to a closely fought season. Chamonix Jonathan Charlet, last year's world champion, rode into the so-called heart of the Beck, taking a small air at the top and then making fluid powder turns. He chose not to jump a snow-laden feature, riding past it to the powder-filled couloir below, looking for a different option he had in mind. Charlet then headed deep into a band of rocks and dropped one big rock, but killed his speed on the landing and then lost more fluidity, waiting for his slough to disperse before hitting the next jump, which he then landed cleanly. Ripping down the face, Charlet threw a series of fast fluid turns into the final cliff band before setting himself up for a final drop to exit the face. A technical line for Charlet, but lacking the fluidity and big airs needed for a first place. Third for Jonathan Charlet. Local rider Xavier Delarue, a previous winner on this face, was always going to be one to watch. Dropping in left, he put in the first of his turns, but then dramatically caught the nose of his board, flipping him over into a dangerously exposed section of the face. But Delarue managed to stop himself, gather his wits, and carry on. Charging down the couloir now, Delarue once again showed his comfort at speed, hitting the cliff zone at the bottom with zero hesitation, and flying over this massive cliff just to hang on to his tricky landing. An impressively ballsy run from Delarue, but unfortunately his mistakes would cost him his chance of a podium. Back to the start gate, Aurélien Routin, a strong title contender, psyched himself up. Dropping right, he traversed the ridge and then sent two cliffs at the top of the couloir and carried his speed down the face. Several more controlled airs for Routin would see him post a second place, but his fate in the overall rankings would rest on the remaining riders. Sammy Lubke had enjoyed a good season on the Tour and was making his debut run on the Beck with a clear shot at the title. Heading right, he dropped in fast down the face, struggling to regain control after his first hit. He just landed his second cliff drop, then sent a third big cliff, this time in control. But Lubke's final cliff would spell disaster as he flipped on his landing. Although he rode out on his feet, the fall would cost Lubke the title and he would settle in fourth place. A big mountain rider through and through, USA's Ralph Backstrom was in his element on the Bec de Ross. Dropping behind the ridge on the rider's right, Backstrom re-emerged onto the face to take on a big cliff. Charging it and stomping his landing like no snowboarder had done before in this section of the Bec. Throwing big, powerful turns down the face, he carried his speed into the top part of the dogleg couloir, linking three small airs on the way. Again flying down the face at Mach 10, Backstrom hit the cliff in the middle of the couloir, again stomping it and finishing his run as he started at high speed and in perfect control. Backstrom's epic run will go down as one of the best runs by a snowboarder on the Bec, earning him first place.
Good. Number one.
And the overall title of Freeride World Champion.
You know, this face is, I guess for me, it's not a face I would normally ride on a daily basis as hard as I can. So, yeah, for me, to stand on top after riding this is really special.
What makes a great rider for me is probably someone who has got some mental strength and that can transform that back onto a ski field.
I'm a fan of when a rider is a really good skier and bring in some tricks as well.
Someone with good style, rides powerfully and sort of goes into sketchy situations with a lot of confidence.
And is not afraid to take chances and crash sometimes too. That's a good rider in my opinion.
You know, I think all the women on the tour are absolutely incredible. There's definitely a few that stand out to me. Christine Hargan.
Christine Hargan.
Christine Hargan.
Probably Christine.
She's one of my favorite skiers to watch.
I say she's like the one that I'm always looking out for.
Every time, you know she's going to send it, you know she's going to do something really cool.
Last year in Verbier, she hit a very big cliff in the bottom and she stomped it perfect. It was, yeah, really impressive.
So most of the time skiers are jumping bigger cliffs than snowboarders, but Xavier was one of the snowboarders who really jumped big cliffs.
Rolf Buckstrom, as he's been putting in an amazing run in Revelstoke.
Sammy Lubke has done a lot of filming with standard films. He's a pretty talented rider.
You can expect to see Lubke sending. The kid, he's on a different level.
Shannon Yates, you know, she finds really creative lines, and that's something that always stands out to me. Like, she just like seems to just be like, oh, just going right in these trees, and then does this little double into a chute just coming out, or it's really cool to watch her. And
I really admire her style. She's always super smooth and, you know, is very solid.
Definitely on the skiing side, there's just such a deep pool of talent here, so it's hard to say, but you know, you got the guys like Tom Leitner, who's really smooth tricks, and you got Arlene Ducrot, who's super confident in its deep technical stuff and everything in between.
On this tour, there are a lot of truly great riders, but the thing that really distinguishes a couple of the guys like Drew Tapke and Marcus Eder is their ability to just make their first time on the face look like they've skied it 100 times.
I believe the 30-odd guys we've got here, any one on their day is good enough to win. And if any one of them is good enough to win on the day, any of them are good enough to be a world champion.
I did my first ever freeride competition as a rookie in 2000. It was pretty exciting for me. I went there as a nobody and met all my big heroes from the snowboarding world. I prepared myself really well the night before competition, really planning every single turn of my run, which I'd never really done before. Then I did my run, did it really well, and it was just super intense experience because my riding in that run was way better than I had been riding normally. I won that day, won the competition, and for almost a full year I was dreaming every night about that run. That's how much an intense experience it was that happened in my head on that day. That experience made me realize how important it is, especially in freeriding, where you never really know what's coming up, to prepare yourself mentally so you are in perfect state of mind to deal with every eventuality that comes up during the run. When I know I am up for a freeride competition, there's a certain countdown in my head with 1 week to go, 1 day to go, a couple of hours, minutes to go, and since I've been doing it for so many years, it's like clockwork now, and everything is working towards that very moment when the guy at the start gate says, okay, you're ready to go.
Und wenn ich dann oben stehe und der Starter sagt, okay, 5 seconds, dann brauche ich gar nicht mehr nachdenken, da bin ich einfach ganz im Flow und brauche nur mehr runterfahren.
I never learned any proper mental relaxation or preparation techniques. Obviously, visualization in a freeride competition is the most important one, because you've got to learn your way down the mountain by heart, otherwise you will have no clue where to go on the way down. And if you do know your line very well, it calms you because you know that whatever happens, you know where to go. You have a plan B, a plan C, so that's the most important thing to me. Other things in my preparation include setting up my gear, so when I'm at the top of the mountain, I need 10 to 12 minutes to do everything. I lace up my boots, I check all the zippers, pack my backpack the way I want it, check the helmet, clean the goggles. This is a very important phase for me when I calm down and my body and mind realize, okay, it's competition time. When it comes to entering the start gate, it's all about the fine line of not being too energized or over-motivated and not being too relaxed, and it very much reflects in the riding. So the riders, which are very aggressive up there and are yelling at themselves, you see it. They're just doing their line down the mountain the way they want it, whereas other riders are really calm up there and they are more in tune with the mountain. They're more like floating down the mountain. The result can be just as spectacular, but it's a very different approach to riding. Starting on the shoulder of the Bec de Ross, the women skiers were warming up and ready to go. With loss of Christine Hargen and Eva Walkner to injury, the contest was open for new talent to make their mark. Pia Nick Gunderson of Norway dropped in fall line, hopping a couple of small rocks as she descended. Halfway down, she set herself up for a drop, jumping a big rock cleanly and riding out with speed, doing just enough to take 4th place. Next up was Nadine Wallner. The young German in her rookie year on the tour had barely been off the podium all season and was now competing for her first time here on the Bec. Starting off cautiously, she soon picked the cliff to drop and landed it smoothly. Into the next cliff band, Wallner again picked the highest part of the cliff to drop and once again landed it cleanly. In her head, she probably knew it was not enough to win the extreme, but by playing it safe, she might have a chance in the overall title.
Right in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Season wildcard Lorraine Huber once again proved her skills on the back, taking a no hesitation line into a big cliff and stomping her landing. Arriving at the last cliff band, she took a convincing line, dropping the cliffs to score highly with the judges and pushing Wallner out of the top spot. Last to go was Swede Matilda Rappaport, also in Verbier on a wild card after coming in top in the Freeride World Qualifying Series. No stranger to high-stakes riding, Rappaport dropped in and immediately set about earning some points, taking 2 successive airs near the top. Riding fluid powder turns into the next cliff zone, Rappaport then took on a large rock drop, clearing with plenty to spare. Her fluid, confident riding was a hit with the judges, who placed her first, putting Huber in second and pushing Wallner down to third place. A great maiden win from Rappaport and sign of things to come next year when she will compete full-time on the Tour. But Germany's Nadine Wallner ended a brilliant debut season as Freeride World Champion. This is crazy. At the beginning of the season, I never thought that I would do so well. All the qualifiers, I actually thought, I just want to have a look how the professional riders will do. I've got a lot of respect for them, but it worked for me and I'm glad I made it.
Ja, es hat funktioniert und ich bin froh drum und ja.
With the last of the cloud disappearing from the contest venue, the ski men would face off against each other for their last showdown of the season. Winning the extreme was possible for any of these riders, but only Lopez, Barcaret, and Tabke have enough points to be a possible world champion. Whistler resident Laurent Gaultier came to Verbier off the back of a solid season of top 10 results. Gaultier went skiers right of the dogleg couloir, skiing fall line in this steep, highly technical part of the face. And he skied it fast, but always in control, skillfully navigating his way down the couloir before exiting with a steep cliff drop. Gaultier rounded off his run with a well-executed double cliff, landing it smoothly and skiing down the mountain into first place with a score of 82.33 points.
Oh.
Having spent the season at the top of the rankings, Drew Tabke was a strong favorite to win the overall, although a crash here and a good result from one of his rivals could still have ended his title hopes. Dropping in skiers right, he picked his way slowly around the top section of the course, apparently struggling to find the line he had chosen. Eventually deciding on a line, he gained momentum, boosting an air off a small spine, and then dropping a cliff band into another couloir. Popping out of the couloir, he set himself up and dropped a big 8-meter cliff, landing solidly despite an awkward bounce. Taking powder turns through the deep snow, Tabke made his way into a technical rocky section of the face. Then Tabke weighed his options before dropping a big final cliff. Clearing the projecting rock successfully, and despite a heavy backslap on his landing, he skied it out to the bottom. It wouldn't be enough to make the podium here, which would have seen Tabke win the overall title, so he'd have to wait and see if Lopez or Barcaret would pull through for the championship. France's Julian Lopez had been a standout rider this winter, and with Tabke having failed to make the top 3, Lopez would drop into the back as a title contender. Taking a unique line at the top skiers right of the course, Lopez maneuvered himself into position for his takeoff. Now lined up, Lopez launched himself over the sharp rocks below. Landing in an open section of the face, Lopez made a series of big, fast powder turns. Still skiing fluidly, Lopez entered into a technical rocky zone, skiers right at the dogleg. And in an inspired move, Lopez then combined a series of features into a well-executed triple drop that required perfect timing. Backslapping Lightland as landing, Lopez hung on, keeping his speed and then hooking a right-hand turn at the bottom to drop his last clip. His original line and precise execution were enough to beat Tabke and take 4th place, but not enough to get a podium spot, and the world title would elude him for another year. Dropping in next was Kevin Gury from Les Meunières, France, a rookie on last year's tour and riding the Beck for only his 3rd time. Starting off fast, Gury headed skiers right, jumping a major cliff and stomping his landing in style. Continuing his momentum, Gury threw a series of big, powerful long turns in the open powder field. Then pulling left, Gury pulled into the dogleg couloir, where he carried on skiing with speed and power to the bottom of the couloir, navigating several bands of rock. Then Gury arrived at a unique cliff drop. Taking a moment to find the perfect entry, Gury launched into this tight 6-meter drop, again landing perfectly and boosting his score with the judges. Skiing fluently out of the landing, Gury kept his pace throughout, working his way down to the final feature. Hitting the last cliff with no hesitation, Gury went big, landing this huge air with a minimal backslap and riding it down to the finish. An amazing run from the young Frenchman, earning him 86.33 points and pushing Gauthier off the top spot. But with last year's world champion Reine Barkerud still to go, Gury's 1st place and Tabke's possible title hope still hung in the balance. Barkerud headed out left towards the central couloir. Traveling through this tight no-fall zone, Barkerud showed his exceptional skiing ability, handling the risky sector with intelligence and control. Arriving in the central couloir, Barkerud opened up the throttle and headed towards the Hollywood Cliff, one of the biggest drops in the venue. Launching this huge cliff with almost no hesitation, Barkerud stomped this massive drop. Making big, powerful turns down the rest of the face, Barkerud wove 2 more high-speed drops in his run. Powering down to the finish where the judges would decide if his run was good enough for 1st and a world title. But it wasn't to be, and Barkerud took a worthy 2nd place. Meeting a maiden victory for Kevin Gury on the Bec de Ross. And the title of world champion for Drew Tabke, who despite his 6th place finish, still had enough points to win overall. Up on the Col de Gentienne, an elated Kevin Gury was chaired to the podium by his fellow riders, clearly relishing his 1st victory. And after a brilliant season, American Drew Tabke was crowned 2013 Freeride World Champion in the men's ski category.
Winning the world title has always been my goal. I don't try to ski to win all competitions, but the title has kind of been my plan the whole time. But I've never had a podium here in Verbier on the Bec de Ross, and that's just a really hard, amazing thing that some people never are able to do. And so I think I'm going to have to come back and try to get another good run in a podium here in Verbier.
The Freeride Juniors had their own contest in Verbier with over 80 young shredders hitting the so-called mini Bec on the lookers' left side of the seniors' contest face. These young riders showed their maturity, taking advantage of the creative terrain to stomp impressive tricks and throw powerful fluid turns far beyond the expectations of the judges and the watching pro riders. The day culminated in the prize giving and new junior tour champions, including Pierre Collon and Elizabeth Gerritsen, among the names to watch out for over the next few years. 2013 hasn't been a great tour year for Xavier Delarue, but he is also working hard on his skills in snowboard cross. Xavier is gunning for the 2014 Olympics, competing at the World Cup level to qualify for the French Olympic team. Best of luck, Xavier. So an epic year of freeriding draws to a close once again. We wish the riders all the best as they enjoy some downtime, and we look forward to seeing this talented bunch compete once again on next year's Freeride World Tour.